Hey friend, in today's watercolor tutorial, I'm going to be teaching how to paint this watercolor landscape of Half Dome in Yosemite National Park during the fall season. Without further ado, let's get painting. The colors I'm using today are Burnt Sienna, Sap Green, Perylene Green, Yellow Ochre, Cadmium-Free Yellow, Prussian Blue, Payne's Gray, and Lamp Black. The paper I'm painting on today is a size 5 by 7 inches, and I'll be using a size 6 and a size 2 round Princeton brush. To get started, I'm going to take some watered down lamp black, and we are going to start by sketching out Half Dome. And I'm going to just start with a lopsided rainbow curve, just like so. And then just above that rainbow curve, I'm going to do a second one, and it's going to be closer to this initial edge at first, but then it's going to branch out and widen towards this right side here. From there, I'm going to do just a vertical line, about 1 inch long, and it slightly goes a little bit towards the left. Then I'm going to do just about a 1/2 inch dash line that's slightly angled, and then another slightly crooked vertical line. And then I'm just going to connect this line over towards the left side of the page. Next, I'm going to do another slight curved line here. And then I'm just going to curve it towards the right side of the page. And then do another curve just above there, and just connect the back of Half Dome to this curved line as well. Okay, now from here, I want to just get a light coating of water on the face of Half Dome. This will help kind of buff out some of those sketch lines just a hair bit. And this landscape is going to be in kind of a looser style than I normally do. I want this to be kind of just playful, watery, and loose, using a lot of wet and wet technique. Okay, so I'm going to start with just a little bit of watered down lamp black again, and I just want to kind of build some of the dimension and shading. So just starting with this shade, I'm allowing it to just softly bleed into the face of Half Dome. Alrighty, and from here, I'm going to take a little bit of Payne's Gray and mix it with just a touch of the lamp black. And I just want to add a little bit of some pops of this color. Allow it to just kind of softly bleed out. I'm adding it along this kind of rainbow curve edge here. I'll do just a touch towards the left as well. Maybe just a little bit down the center. Okay, now from here, I'm gonna actually grab our size 2 brush and get a little bit of water on it. The page is still slightly wet, and I'm just gonna smooth out this edge and slowly kind of use the texture and the belly of this brush to get just some really loose brushwork here. The face of Half Dome has some streaks, some vertical streaks on it, so I'm just softly using my size 2 brush just to kind of pull from the pigment that we laid down in that wash. Okay, I'm going to see if we need to add any more areas. Kind of debating leaving it as is. I tend to sometimes want to keep at it, but I'm just going to do maybe just a couple more pops of vibrant shading while this area is still wet. Okay, and then I'm just gonna take my damp size 2 brush again and just lightly buff out the texture slightly. Okay. So before I paint the top of Half Dome, I would like to saturate it with water, and we are going to add some Prussian blue to our sky. So I'm just going to be mindful and careful painting along the edge of our sketch here. Okay, so I just want a really simple, loose watercolor sky, and I'm just going to take some Prussian blue and just apply some of that vibrant blue in a couple areas, letting it just kind of bleed out. Leaving some negative space to act as clouds. Okay, so from here, I want to start to build our ground here with our yellow ochre. So I'm just gonna start by applying just an angled line here, using just yellow ochre and my size 6 brush. From here, I actually want to switch to my size 2 brush now and use some Burnt Sienna, and I'm gonna just add a little bit of texture, doing some angled, some medium, small, and large dash marks here, just to act as like some dried brush in this grass area. So just doing some super loose vertical lines, just tapping with my brush. Right now it's summer. Well, actually, so this is debatable for me, at least. It is September 4th when I'm filming this, and to me, I feel like September 1st signifies fall, but I know technically fall doesn't start till like the last week of September. It's just in my eyes, I just can't help it. September 1st is fall, but I know that's not technically the start date, but I'm very happy to be painting these fall landscapes, and yes, my fall decor is already up, so judgment-free zone here. I think the real debate that people get fired up over is when to put up Christmas or holiday decor, and I won't even get into that. So I'm just layering a little bit more yellow ochre, just texturizing this wash that we laid out with the blend of the burnt sienna and the yellow ochre, just adding a little bit of that texture with some simple dash vertical lines with our size 2 brush. Here I'm just adding a deep concentration of burnt sienna just to add some more contrast and depth. Okay, so from here, I would like to paint kind of a lighter grassland area using just some yellow ochre, and I'm also gonna layer up just a hint of our brighter yellow. So this area is gonna be a little bit more straight, just kind of a swooping line. And then I'm just gonna apply some water and allow wet and wet technique to take over. It's okay that the burnt sienna slightly bleeds into the yellow. And then after I've laid out that yellow ochre wash, I'm just gonna get a pop of bright yellow and just apply a little bit of that towards the left and towards the right, but I'm gonna leave this area blank because we're gonna have some tree shading there with a single fall foliage tree that we'll place there. Okay, so next, I want to start our fall tree. I do have a fall tree tutorial video. If you do want to check that out before I paint this one, I will still teach this one step by step, but if you want practice, I do have a fall tree tutorial that I will link in the description. To get started, I am just going to take some burnt sienna and do a dash line just like so. From there, I'm just going to tap out a little bit more burnt sienna in a horizontal fashion, just like so, just for a little bit of shading. And then I'm going to take some water using my size 2 brush and just slightly blend that out. And I'm going to take a small amount of black, just a tiny amount, just to kind of darken that shading slightly, just in a horizontal loose motion. Then from here, I want to take my brush and just do a few simple branches. And these branches are going to be kind of like the Y letter shape, except just very whimsical, the Tim Burton style of the letter Y. So I just basically do an angled line, just like so, and then give it a couple more dash lines connecting off of it. That's kind of the base foundation, but from here you can add a couple more little dash lines connected to one of the Y branches. You can even have one of the branches pointed downward slightly, just like this one. And again, this is just very loose. I'm doing just a few random dash lines because some foliage may be in the way of some of the branches being fully in view. Okay, so from here, I am going to take my size 6 brush while the branches are still slightly wet, and I'm gonna start with just some simple yellow. So our cadmium-free yellow here, so it's nice and vibrant. And I'm just tapping the paper with the tip of my brush. Allowing a few gaps to pop through amongst the foliage. And I'm even going to layer some of the yellow on top of the trunk portion and allow the brown or the burnt sienna to just kind of bleed out softly. Okay, so while this is still wet, I'm gonna take my size 2 brush and use some Burnt Sienna just to tap into the lower areas of the foliage and just to give a little bit more depth and shading to the tree. And again, I'm just tapping just a light amount towards the bottom, giving the tree just a little bit of loose texture. And while our tree here is drying, I'm going to rinse off my size 6 brush and just do a really light wash of just a touch of Payne's Gray and mixed with just a hint of black as well. And it's just a really light, dusty wash. I'm just going to use a light amount of pressure just to buff out the sketch line. Then from here, I just simply want to add just a few pops of variegated gray, so just a light amount of lamp black, just to give the rock a little bit more texture so it's not so flat. And I'm gonna just add a little bit more of a cooler tone to that kind of gray color using our Payne's Gray. And if the watercolor kind of oversaturates the area, you can add some pressure with your brush and glide it across just to lift any colors. That way the top of Half Dome still remains just like a nice highlight. Okay, now from here, I want to get going on some misty pine trees. And so for these pine trees, I'm going to be using some Perylene Green and some Sap Green. And to get started on these, I'm going to just do a really loose wash of water in about the first inch or so. And be mindful, we are painting around this fall tree, but it's okay if there's a little bit of overlap, slightly. All right, and then from here, I want to use our Sap Green using my size 2 brush. And I'm gonna start just by doing a few vertical dash lines. Some that are taller than others and some that are just more minuscule. Do one nice big one just for some height variety. So just some simple vertical lines. Then from here, I just want to paint a little bit more Sap Green in the base just to allow it to loosely bleed out. And it's okay to texturize that kind of marker where the yellow meets the green a little bit. And again, I'm just kind of tapping along this edge just to get a nice loose, rough texture. And then I'm just going to tap some Sap Green into the white gaps of our fall tree. All right, from here, I want to add just a touch of Perylene Green towards the bottom, just to give a little bit more depth to our greenery. And I'm using my size 2 brush and just lightly texturizing using the tip of the brush all the way across. And then I'm just going to lightly tap just a couple touches of the Perylene Green into our tree here. Okay, next I am going to form our trees here, and basing off of the vertical line, I'm just going to do a few textured dash marks on the left and right side, following a loose shape of like a cone silhouette, where the top is nice and pointed, and as it gradually goes towards the bottom, it eventually increases its width. And again, I'm just doing a nice loose texture back and forth, not overthinking it too much, allowing the top to be nice and pointed and elongated and the base nice and wide. Almost like a really skinny triangle, but just keeping it loose, allowing some white gaps to pop through as well for some texture. As I get towards the top of the tree, I will just have a few dash lines of the sap green popping just above there, and then I will just be really mindful about going around the yellow foliage of the tree with my sap green, just to get the appearance of some trees just behind it. Right, two final steps I want to do is just add a little bit more Perylene Green and just texturize just a few areas amongst the pine trees just to add a little bit more depth and variegation and texture in the greenery. So I'm just using the size 2 brush and just lightly tapping some of that green. Alrighty, and then from here, I want to take a little bit of yellow ochre and just apply a touch of it in this transition area, just by doing some vertical kind of up and down texture with the size 2 brush. Just giving it a little bit of some earthier tones with the yellow ochre. And then last but not least, I'm just gonna take a touch more of our Burnt Sienna and just do a couple areas where the Burnt Sienna is slightly more concentrated in the tree, just to make it pop slightly, not going too overboard. And that is it. Thank you so much for joining me today for this watercolor landscape tutorial of Yosemite National Park. Be sure to like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already so you don't miss any upcoming tutorials. And just so you know, I also have a watercolor tutorial of El Capitan from Yosemite during the fall season as well. So if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you would also love that one, and I will link that in the description box below.